Here's something strange. You can study English for 5 years, memorize thousands of words, watch hundreds of lessons, and still freeze when someone asks you a simple question. Not because you don't know English, but because your brain is doing something that silently slows everything down. It happens in less than a second. Someone says a sentence. Your brain hears it, translates it into your native language, finds an answer, translates the answer back into English. Then finally you speak, and by then the conversation has already moved on. What if I told you that for the next 30 minutes, we're going to interrupt that habit, not by studying grammar, not by memorizing vocabulary, but by slowly teaching your brain to think in English. And if you stay until the end, something surprising happens. You'll notice English feels less like a subject and more like a language. So don't translate, just listen. Let the words come directly into your mind. Ready? Let's begin. Imagine this. You wake up early in the morning. The room is quiet. Sunlight slips through the window. You open your eyes. You stretch your arms. You take a deep breath. And for a moment, you do nothing. Just notice the room around you. The ceiling, the walls, the light, the air. Notice what just happened. You understood every sentence. You didn't stop to translate. You simply saw the images. That's exactly how children learn language. Not word by word, picture by picture, moment by moment. And right now, your brain is already doing it. Let's continue. You get out of bed. The floor feels cool under your feet. You walk to the kitchen. You pour a glass of water. You drink slowly. The water feels refreshing. You hear birds outside. A car passes on the street. Somewhere nearby, someone starts their day. As you're listening, I want you to pay attention to something. Your brain is creating a movie. You can see the kitchen. You can see the glass. You can hear the sounds. And that movie is far more powerful than translation, because language is not really words. Language is experience. Think about the word coffee. Did you translate it? Probably not. Maybe you imagined a cup. Maybe you imagined the smell. Maybe you imagined yourself drinking it. That's how fluent speakers process language. Directly, instantly, without the extra step. And we're training that skill right now. Imagine you're walking through a busy city. People move in every direction. Some are talking. Some are laughing. Some are rushing to work. The traffic lights change. A bus stops. A bicycle passes by. You look around and notice hundreds of small stories happening at the same time. A man buys a newspaper. A woman talks on her phone. A child points excitedly at something in a store window. Life is moving everywhere. Now here's a question. Did you notice how easy that was to follow? You weren't analyzing grammar. You weren't thinking about verb tenses. You weren't trying to remember rules. You were simply understanding. And understanding always comes before speaking. This is where many learners make a mistake. They try to force speaking before building automatic understanding. It's like trying to run before learning how to walk. Fluency begins with effortless comprehension. The more English enters your mind naturally, the more naturally English comes out. But let's make this more interesting. Imagine you're sitting in a small cafe. Rain falls outside. Soft music plays in the background. You order your favorite drink. The cup arrives, warm, comforting. You hold it in your hands. Across the room sits an older man reading a book. Near the window, two friends are having a conversation. At another table, someone works quietly on a laptop. Everything feels peaceful. Then suddenly, the lights go out. The music stops. The room becomes silent. Everyone looks around. For a few seconds, nobody knows what happened. Then someone laughs. Another person turns on a flashlight. The cafe fills with conversation again. And just like that, the tension disappears. Interesting, isn't it? A simple change instantly grabs your attention. Stories work the same way. Unexpected moments wake up the brain. That's why your mind remembers stories better than lists. Your brain loves curiosity. It loves surprises. It loves unfinished puzzles. Which brings us to something important. Right now, your brain is adapting. You may not feel it. You may not notice it. But tiny connections are forming. Every sentence you understand directly in English strengthens those connections. And the more often that happens, the less translation you need. Think about driving a car. The first time feels difficult. You think about every action, the steering wheel, the mirrors, the pedals. Everything requires effort. But after enough practice, something changes. You stop thinking about driving. You simply drive. Language works the same way. At first, every sentence feels like work. Later, it feels automatic. But here's the part most people never hear. Automatic language isn't created by forcing yourself to speak more. It's created by understanding more, again and again, until your brain recognizes patterns without effort. Let's try something. Don't analyze these sentences. Just let them pass through your mind. A dog runs across a field. The grass moves in the wind. Clouds drift slowly across the sky. A child flies a kite. The kite rises higher and higher. The string pulls gently against small hands. A bird circles overhead. The afternoon sun feels warm. Notice how your brain instantly understands. No translation required. That direct understanding is the foundation of fluency. And now, I want to tell you a short story. A young man wanted to learn English. He studied every day. He bought grammar books. He memorized vocabulary. He watched lessons for hours. Yet whenever someone spoke to him in English, he panicked. His mind became blank. Years passed. Then one day, he changed a single habit. Instead of studying English, he started experiencing English. He listened to stories. He watched simple videos. He imagined scenes. He focused on understanding instead of translating. At first, nothing seemed different. A week passed, then a month, then something unexpected happened. One afternoon, someone asked him a question in English, and before he could translate, he answered. The response simply appeared. Naturally, instantly. For the first time, English felt alive. That moment changed everything. Because fluency isn't a destination. It's a collection of tiny moments. Moments when the language starts arriving directly. Moments when the translation layer becomes thinner. Moments when understanding becomes effortless. And perhaps one of those moments is happening right now. Imagine you're standing beside the ocean. Waves roll toward the shore. Again and again and again. No single wave changes the coastline, but thousands of waves do. Language learning works exactly the same way. One sentence may seem small. One story may seem insignificant. One listening session may feel ordinary, but together they reshape the brain, little by little, day by day, without you even noticing. And there is one more thing most learners misunderstand. They believe progress should feel dramatic. They expect a breakthrough, a magical day when everything suddenly becomes easy. But real progress is usually quieter. One day you understand a sentence faster. One day you recognize a phrase immediately. One day you stop translating a familiar expression. One day you answer without planning. Small changes, invisible changes, until eventually you realize you're no longer the same learner you were before. You realize you're no longer the same learner you were before. The strange part is that you probably won't remember the exact day it happened. Just like you don't remember the exact day you learned to recognize faces, or the exact day you learned to ride a bicycle. Your brain changes quietly, behind the scenes, while you're busy living your life. And that brings us to a question. What would happen if, for the next few minutes, you completely stopped worrying about mistakes? Think about that. No fear of grammar errors. No fear of pronunciation mistakes. No fear of sounding imperfect. Just understanding. Just listening. Just allowing English to exist in your mind. Because fear creates tension, and tension slows learning. Imagine trying to catch water with your hands squeezed tightly shut. Impossible. But open your hands, and the water flows naturally. Language is very similar. The more relaxed your mind becomes, the more information it absorbs. So let's take a small journey. Imagine you're on a train. The train moves steadily through the countryside. Fields stretch across the horizon. Trees pass by the window. Small towns appear and disappear. You sit quietly and watch the world move. An old couple shares a conversation. A teenager listens to music. A little girl stares out the window with endless curiosity. Everyone is traveling somewhere, but nobody is moving at the same speed. And that's important because language learners often compare themselves to others. Someone speaks faster. Someone knows more vocabulary. Someone seems more confident. And suddenly they feel behind. But learning isn't a race. It's a journey. Some trains move quickly. Some move slowly. Yet both reach their destination. What matters is continuing forward. One sentence, one story, one day at a time. Now imagine the train enters a tunnel. Everything becomes dark. The scenery disappears. The windows reflect the passengers inside. For a moment, all you can see are reflections. Then the train emerges again. Sunlight floods the cabin. The world returns. The tunnel lasted only seconds, yet it changed everything. Learning often feels like that. Sometimes progress seems invisible. You enter a tunnel. You listen every day. You practice every day. Yet nothing appears to change. Then suddenly, you emerge, and you realize you've improved far more than you thought. The tunnel wasn't stopping your progress. It was part of your progress. This is why consistency beats intensity. 30 minutes every day can change a life. Not because 30 minutes sounds impressive, but because repetition rewires the brain. Think about your own name. You don't translate it. You recognize it instantly. Why? Because you've heard it thousands of times. Your brain built a direct connection. The same thing happens with English. The phrase, "How are you?" becomes automatic. Then, "What are you doing?" Then, "I don't know." Then, "That sounds interesting." Then, entire conversations. Piece by piece, connection by connection, until English starts arriving as meaning instead of words. And when that happens, something beautiful begins. You stop listening for language. You start listening for ideas. You stop focusing on vocabulary. You focus on stories. You stop trying to understand English. You simply understand. Let's explore that feeling. Imagine you're hiking through a forest. The path winds between tall trees. Sunlight filters through the leaves. Birds sing somewhere above. The air feels fresh. You continue walking. The path becomes steeper. The climb becomes harder. For a while, you're tired. You wonder if it's worth continuing. Then you reach the top, and suddenly, everything opens. Mountains stretch into the distance. Rivers sparkle below. The entire landscape unfolds before you. The climb makes sense. Every step mattered. Language learning often feels exactly like this. The difficult days matter. The frustrating days matter. Even the days when you feel stuck matter. Because each step builds the view waiting ahead. And here's something fascinating. Your brain loves efficiency. It constantly searches for shortcuts. When you translate everything, your brain learns a habit. When you understand directly, your brain learns a different habit. Whatever you repeat becomes easier. So every moment you spend listening directly in English sends a message to your brain. This is how we communicate now. This is the path we're building. This is the road we're strengthening. The brain listens and slowly adjusts. Imagine a narrow path through a field. The first person walks across it. The grass bends slightly. The second person follows. Then a third. Then 100 more. Over time, a clear trail appears. The path becomes obvious, easy to follow. Your neural pathways work in exactly the same way. Every sentence you understand strengthens the trail. Every listening session makes the route clearer. Every day of exposure widens the path, until eventually English stops feeling unfamiliar. It becomes natural. And here's where many people give up too early. They quit when the path is still forming. They stop before the trail becomes visible. They assume nothing is happening. But growth is often hidden before it becomes obvious. A seed underground looks inactive, yet beneath the surface, everything is changing. Roots are growing. Connections are forming. Preparation is happening. Then one day, the seed breaks through the soil. Everyone notices the plant. Nobody notices the months of invisible work. Your brain works the same way. Right now, invisible work is happening. Every image you create, every sentence you understand, every idea you process directly in English. It's all adding up, even if you can't see it. Especially if you can't see it. Now let me ask you something. Have you ever watched a movie so engaging that you forgot it was in another language? For a few moments, subtitles disappeared from your awareness. You stopped focusing on words. You focused on the story, the emotions, the characters, the tension, the excitement. That's not an accident. That's your brain doing exactly what it was designed to do. Humans evolved to understand stories. Stories organize information. Stories create meaning. Stories make language memorable. That's why you're here right now, not studying a list of grammar rules, not memorizing isolated vocabulary, but following a story. And while you follow the story, your brain follows the language, without resistance, without force, without exhaustion. Imagine you're sitting beside a campfire at night. The flames dance in the darkness. The air is cool. The stars stretch across the sky. Someone begins telling a story. You lean forward, not because you need information, but because you're curious. Curiosity is one of the most powerful learning tools in existence. When curiosity appears, attention follows. When attention follows, learning becomes easier. This is why forcing yourself rarely works for long. But curiosity keeps people listening for hours. And curiosity is exactly what we're building now. Because in a few minutes, I'm going to share something that many English learners never realize until it's almost too late. Something that quietly determines whether they become fluent or remain stuck. But before that, notice something. You've been listening for a long time, and you're still understanding. Not perfectly, not every single word, but enough, more than enough. And that's important, because understanding doesn't require perfection. Communication never requires perfection. If it did, nobody would speak. Native speakers make mistakes. Children make mistakes. Experts make mistakes. Yet communication continues. The goal is not perfect English. The goal is connection. The goal is understanding. The goal is sharing ideas. And once you truly understand that, everything becomes lighter. Everything becomes lighter. The pressure fades. The fear shrinks. And suddenly, learning English feels less like an exam and more like a conversation. Now, here's the thing. Many learners discover too late. The biggest obstacle is rarely vocabulary. It's rarely grammar. And it's almost never intelligence. The biggest obstacle is waiting. Waiting until your English is perfect. Waiting until you know enough words. Waiting until you feel confident. Waiting until you're ready. But readiness is a strange thing. Most people think readiness comes first. Then action follows. In reality, action creates readiness. Think about learning to swim. You can read books about swimming, watch videos about swimming, study every swimming technique. But sooner or later, you have to enter the water. Language works the same way. Understanding creates confidence. Confidence creates action. Action creates more confidence. And the cycle continues. Imagine a small child learning to walk. The child falls again and again and again. Nobody says, maybe walking isn't for you. Nobody says, you made too many mistakes. Nobody expects perfection. Falling is accepted as part of learning. But somehow, adults forget this. They expect themselves to speak a new language perfectly from the beginning. And when they can't, they become frustrated. Yet mistakes are not evidence of failure. Mistakes are evidence of learning. Every fluent speaker you've ever admired made thousands of mistakes, probably tens of thousands. The difference is simple. They kept going. Now imagine you're standing at the edge of a large lake. The surface is perfectly still. Like glass, you throw a small stone into the water. A ripple appears, then another, then another. The circles spread outward, far beyond the point where the stone entered. One small action creates movement everywhere. Your daily English practice works exactly like that. One story, one listening session, one conversation, one sentence. Each creates ripples, small at first, invisible at first, but powerful over time. And here's something remarkable. Your brain never forgets how to learn language. Never. It's one of the most natural abilities humans possess. You learned your first language without grammar books, without vocabulary lists, without language apps. You learned through exposure, patterns, repetition, Meaning, of course, learning a second language is different, but the core principle remains the same. The brain learns language by experiencing language, not by collecting rules. Rules can help, grammar can help, vocabulary can help, but experience creates fluency. Let's do something simple. Picture a red apple. That's it. A red apple. Did you translate those words? Or did you instantly see the image? Most likely, you saw the image. Now picture a snowy mountain, a crowded airport, a quiet beach at sunset, a dog sleeping under a tree. Notice what happened. Images appeared immediately. Meaning appeared immediately. That's direct understanding. That's the skill fluent speakers use every day. And every minute you spend listening like this strengthens that ability. Now imagine you're walking through a market. The air is filled with sounds. People talking, vendors calling out, music playing from somewhere in the distance. The smell of food drifts through the air. Fresh bread, spices, coffee, fruit. Everywhere you look, something captures your attention. A colorful sign, a smiling face, a beautiful handmade object. The market feels alive. Language is like that too. At first, everything feels overwhelming. Too many sounds, too many words, too much information. But then something changes. Patterns emerge. Familiar phrases appear. Your ears adjust. The noise becomes meaning. The confusion becomes clarity. And what once felt impossible begins to feel normal. This transformation happens so gradually that many learners don't notice it until one day they're listening to English and suddenly realize they're not translating anymore. They're simply understanding. That moment feels magical, but it's not magic. It's training. It's repetition. It's exposure. It's time. And perhaps, most importantly, it's trust. Trusting that your brain is learning, even when you can't measure it. Trusting that progress is happening, even when you can't see it. Trusting the process long enough for results to appear. Imagine planting a tree. The day after planting, it looks the same. A week later, almost the same. Even a month later, the changes seem small, but return years later, and everything is different. The tiny daily growth created something extraordinary. Language learning follows the same law. Small daily effort, massive long-term results. The challenge is that humans love immediate rewards. We want visible progress, instant improvement, fast results, but the most valuable skills in life rarely work that way. Strength, wisdom, relationships, mastery, language, all grow slowly, then suddenly, slowly, then suddenly. And if you've stayed with me this long, you're already doing something most people won't do. You're giving your brain time. Time to absorb. Time to adapt. Time to build new pathways. That alone puts you ahead of many learners. Because consistency is a superpower. not talent, not luck, not natural ability. Consistency. The person who spends 30 minutes a day with English for a year will often outperform someone who studies intensely for a week and then quits. The brain loves regularity. It loves repetition. It loves patterns. And every time you listen, you're telling your brain, this matters. Keep this. Strengthen this connection. Imagine entering a room you've never seen before. At first, everything feels unfamiliar. You don't know where anything is. But if you visit the room every day, eventually you stop thinking. You know where the door is. You know where the chair is. You know where the light switch is. Familiarity creates comfort. English works the same way. The more often you enter the language, the more comfortable it becomes, until one day, English no longer feels like a foreign place. It feels familiar. It feels accessible. It feels like home. And maybe that's the real goal. Not speaking perfect English, not knowing every word, not mastering every grammar rule, but feeling at home in the language, feeling relaxed inside it, feeling comfortable expressing yourself, feeling free, because freedom is what fluency truly gives you. The freedom to connect with people, the freedom to share your ideas, the freedom to understand the world in a new way, the freedom to be understood. And that freedom begins with moments like this, moments when you stop translating, moments when you stop overthinking, moments when you simply listen, simply understand, simply experience the language. Right now, as this journey comes to an end, I want you to notice something. You spent all this time inside English, not studying it, not analyzing it, living in it, following images, stories, ideas, moments, and if you felt even a little more comfortable than when you started, that's progress. If understanding felt slightly easier, that's progress. If English felt a little more natural, that's progress. Tiny changes matter, because tiny changes become big changes. Small habits become transformations, and one listening session becomes hundreds. One day becomes months, months become years, and eventually, a person who once translated every sentence finds themselves thinking directly in English, not because they forced it, not because they chased perfection, but because they kept showing up again and again and again. So the next time you listen to English, don't ask yourself, did I understand every word? Ask yourself, did I understand the message? Because language is not about words. Language is about meaning. And the more meaning you absorb directly, the more naturally English becomes part of you. Take a deep breath. Look how far you've already come. Your brain is learning. Your mind is adapting. The path is forming. And every minute you spend with English makes that path stronger. Keep listening. Keep imagining. Keep trusting the process. One day you'll have a conversation in English and realize something incredible. The translation never came. You didn't need it. The words simply arrived, naturally, effortlessly, like they belonged there all along. And when that moment comes, you'll smile, because you'll remember that fluency wasn't built in a single day. It was built one sentence at a time, one story at a time, one listening session at a time, including this one.